Now, we mentioned that typically the ratios we describe as a percent are part-to-whole ratios. For example, we might say that 80% of the students at a certain college are part-time. That means that the ratio of part-time students to all students is 80 to 100. Or in other words, for every 100 students, 80 of them are part-time. In this context, it wouldn't make sense for the college to have more part-time students than it has students overall. In other words, more than 100% wouldn't make sense here. But there are places that we encounter percentages over 100. There's certainly nothing to stop us from writing them down, or from saying what they would mean in a mathematical sense. Mathematically, 110% just means 110 to 100, or, as a simplified fraction, 11/10, or 1.1. And yet, what does it mean when the coach says, "Go out there and give 110%? The question that we should always ask when we encounter a percentage, but especially when we encounter a percentage over 100, is percent of what? What whole are we referring to? This whole is sometimes called the base, and it's described with the phrase percent of whatever the base is. There are two things that the coach might reasonably mean here, one of which makes sense and one of which doesn't. One of the things the coach might mean, and the one that most of the jokes about this statement are typically referring to, is make an effort that is 110% of the effort that you are capable of making. And obviously that isn't possible. If you make as much effort as you possibly can, then the ratio of your effort to the effort you're capable of making is just 1 to 1, or we could write that as 100 to 100, which is 100%. On the other hand, the coach might also mean make an effort that is 110% of the effort you typically make. And now that makes perfect sense. Suppose the effort that you typically make is equal to 30 effort units, whatever that might be. Then the coach's advice is simply that today your effort should be 110 over 100 times 30, or 33 effort units. Where is this all going? Fundamentally, when we're trying to make sense of a percent that's over 100, it is especially important that we get to the bottom of exactly what our percent is referring to. Percents will often refer to a ratio of a part to a whole, but not necessarily when they're not referring to a ratio of a part to a whole. We need to be conscious of exactly what ratio they do refer to.